Welcome. This is Listen Up, Jesus is on the Air. I'm Caterina Viti with Barbara Campbell.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, and we're here to say that we love Jesus and we love you listeners, and thank you for waking up on this beautiful Saturday morning to listen today. And we're going to have a great show. We're going to be mentioning about pilgrimages, and we have Natalie here and another person, Jeannie, who's going to be Gina, who's going to be sharing her experience being a nurse practitioner and
At a mission.
At a mission, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
We just want to remind you that this is your station, Long Island, and it's very unique because it's about you, and we want to hear your stories. You know, the Lord wants you to come and witness to what your stories are. Remember, this is about you. This is your station. So today is exciting because this is the season, actually. Would you agree, Father Peter?
Yeah, Father Peter's here too.
This is the season for pilgrimage, right?
Sure, it's a wonderful time to go in the fall. Some of these places are very hot during the summertime, and my sister made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and of course it was she got into a little bit of discomfort because of temperatures around 109 down by the Dead Sea and that type of thing. So this fall season is a little better.
So pilgrimage is our topic today, and I think that we have like a great kind of cross-section of what that really means. Many people don't understand that, and they think of a pilgrimage almost as a vacation with a spiritual overtone. But I wanted to ask Father Peter to just open up with kind of jumping out of the box about what pilgrimage really is and telling us what it was meant to be, maybe a little history of it,
Sure.
and what the actual concept of penance, how that was built into the term pilgrimage.
Well, of course, it is true. It's not simply a vacation or a trip. The idea of pilgrimages really goes back to the Middle Ages, when oftentimes, the people did not go to confession that often for small sins, but when they did go to confession, they were confessing large sins, and the priest would often impose a strong penance, such as make a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Well, it became more and more difficult to actually get to the Holy Land, or sometimes to get to Rome for some, so the smaller pilgrimage routes grew up. A big one, of course, is Santiago in Spain, but there are other ones too. If you can think of Canterbury in England, and in your literature courses you might have read a little bit of the Canterbury Tales, and those were little stories. People were making up stories, sharing on their journey. Okay, these were pilgrims' journey, and they were telling stories. So I can tell you that the English tradition about a pilgrimage, yes, is penance, yes, is repentance, yes, is conversion, but it's also, yes, it's a little fun too. Okay, it's a little fun too. These are wonderful stories that were told, and of course, I can tell you also that in places even as holy as Lourdes and so forth, there's a little bit of reverent nightlife even in those places, where people drink a little bit of that wonderful Belgian beer. The Belgian beer has found its way down to Lourdes, but Mary is still there, doing her wonderful work with people.
And in Medjugorje, of course, it was all about pizza.
Yes, it's pizza and gelato. Those are the two things that will get you through Medjugorje.
I didn't know about the Medjugorje pizza.
And
Sounds
gelato,
good.
there's gelato stands on every possible corner. So
nice.
it's 105 to 107 there.
Oh wow, yeah,
So
that's perfect.
It's yeah. So, Father Peter, do you think that the concept of pilgrimage is being revived right now?
Well, it seems to be. It seems to be revived among some of our young people, and then you find it in surprising places. I was just talking to a fellow priest of the diocese, and he's had a private part of his spirituality of going to on the Camino, going to Santiago. He's done it several times, and he keeps it under his hat. But it's a part of his getting close to the Lord. And you might even remember that movie with Martin Sheen, The Way. Okay, Martin Sheen really portrayed a skeptical, critical guy who got himself into all kinds of life issues and life problems, and some of that was worked out on the road to Santiago. So it's a beautiful thing. So what I say is, yes, it is. And then the tour companies are probably not enrolling as many people maybe as they were in the 80s and 90s, but they're getting a cross section of younger people too to make some of these journeys.
So Natalie, tell us a little bit about what happened to you.
This summer I just went on my second pilgrimage. The first one I went to World Youth Day in Poland, but this one was a little different. Actually, not a little, quite different.
Natalie, tell us how old you are.
I'm 16 and I'm a junior in high school. So this summer I had the privilege to go to Spain, France, Portugal, and Poland. All very, very beautiful places, very holy, the places that I went to.
Last time she was on, she was mentioning about last year's pilgrimage in Poland and the World Youth Day, and how now coming back you could share about this experience, how this past summer was for
This summer it was different, especially because since I went with a different group. I went with an older group. Even though there were a few young people, but I was definitely the youngest one there, compared to last time where it was just millions and millions of young people. So this pilgrimage was very, very powerful for me, because I think since I went sort of alone, like not with church friends. So I had the opportunity to really reflect and pray and meditate by myself a lot of the times. So especially going into my junior year, I'm just a nervous wreck. So I definitely...
Well, that's the roughest year, right?
Yes, the roughest year. It was this pilgrimage was a good time to meditate and pray for the upcoming year, and to ask for strength for all these upcoming battles I'm about to endure, and yeah.
So tell us exactly where you were and what you did.
First I went to Portugal, and we stayed in Fatima, and we were in Fatima for 3 days, and this is my second time in Fatima, because last year after Poland we also went to Portugal, but Fatima, my favorite place in the whole world. It's so peaceful there. And this time, one morning I went by myself over there to the sanctuary, and I did the kneeling devotion, and it's painful, but it's so powerful at the same time, and it's just a wonderful sacrifice to offer up to God. And
you want to tell us about the kneeling devotion? What actually does it entail?
So basically, the three shepherds that the three little kids the Blessed Mother appeared to told them to kneel to the where she appeared. So they would have to kneel, and so where the
chapel.
The chapel, yes, where the chapel was, they'd have to kneel down there. So they made a path, and so you kneel your way down to the chapel, and you go around it, and then you go towards the Blessed Mother, and you pray and you say the rosary and whatever will help you to get through it. But
so it's called the kneeling devotion because you kneel a certain amount of time.
You kneel the whole way, the whole pathway.
Oh, wow.
You're walking on you're walking on your knees in a certain
Yes.
sense. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You're not walking. You're actually on your knees.
Right on your knees, right.
Yes, it's painful.
It's
I
about
remember
a mile, I think.
A mile?
Yeah.
A little less, but
Almost, yeah.
almost.
Yeah.
I remember, does it have to be painful to be in real pilgrimage? I don't know. I'm hoping not. But I guess that's part of kind of built into
Well, the
it.
inconveniences.
The inconvenience, right.
The challenges of
Yeah.
dealing with different people and dealing with different environment and being out of your regular routine and trying to, be recollected while being aware of what's going on around you. All these pose different kind of challenges to different people. I mean, some folks say, well, don't worry about doing a great deal of penance while you're there. You'll do that when you get home. Sometimes, too much strenuousness would prevent you from getting the experience. So each and every person has to do their own thing. I don't know, at a certain point in time, I'm not sure I could physically do that trip on my knees at this point in time without some kind of rubber mat underneath them or something. I think I'd get paralyzed for the first 100 yards or so. I wouldn't be moving at all, you know. So I defer that to the younger people.
Yeah.
Well, I remember St. Anne de Beaupré in Canada, that shrine, and they had, I don't know, maybe 200 steps, and people went up on their knees, and I guess I was probably your age, about 16, and I thought that was so cool. But I know that that's kind of built. I don't really think you need to build in penance to pilgrimages, because I think pilgrimages are inherently difficult. And I think if you're really making it in the Lord, I think that you're going to have enough penance just kind of built into it, because as Father said, it's inconvenient, it's different, you know, it takes you to places that you're not used to. It's certainly not, you know, a 5-star hotel and all the amenities. So I think there's so many things already. And I keep thinking of this great story I have. My daughter Mary Beth, she was, I guess she was like 18 or 19. And Father Benedict Rochelle, who's with the Lord right now, was doing a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, which all sounded great. And Mary, he knew our family very well, and he had invited Mary to come. And Mary was very excited about it. But there was only one glitch, and that was that the Holy Land was in great disarray at that point. There was a lot of stuff going on there, and it was very dangerous to go over there. It really was. But we were like, okay, so, you know, the Lord's calling her there. We were just trusting that God was going to protect her, and he was taking this group. And when I say dangerous, I don't mean that it was, you know, guaranteed you were going to get shot, but there was a lot of danger. A lot of people were not going to the Holy Land. And I remember my family went crazy, you know, and we were kind of young parents at that time, and my in-laws were calling me and saying, you're not going to let her go. You can't let her go. How could you do that? My parents were upset. Everybody was so upset. So I finally called Father Benedict, because I figured, well, I'll tell him how upset everybody is, right? And I said, Father, you know, everybody's upset that Mary Beth's going on this pilgrimage. And of course I wanted him to reassure me, you know, so I could tell them, use his authority, and tell them, oh, you know, Father said that there's no issue. But instead, he says to me, well, yeah, that's the nature of a pilgrimage. Danger is always part of it.
He said it so nonchalantly.
Yeah. He said, you know, that's part of it. And there was no consolation there. But he spoke with such authority when he said it that I felt even more convicted that the Lord wanted her to go. And Jerusalem is in Mary Beth's heart. Like I cannot tell you to this day. She has such a heart for Jerusalem. And since then, she has felt called to Medjugorje. I think she's been there 9 times. So it was the beginning of an amazing epic in her life, where she really was, you know, broke through from wanting to know about God to allowing God to know about her. You know, that moment of breakthrough that is so important in our conversion process. So that's my little story.
That's beautiful. You said allowing God to get to know her.
Yeah.
And that's funny.
Relationship.
Okay, because it's funny because God knows everything about her, but having that one-on-one time with her.
Exactly.
And then going to Medjugorje, that sparked that.
Right.
That's incredible. Yeah.
Well, think about it in relationships. You know, I deal with relationships all the time in counseling, and you know about the other person, but when the other person shares what you already even kind of know,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it so much more intimate and, you know, grounding?
Yeah. You have that connection.
Right. It really connects you with
You
that
get
person.
to meet other people of faith too. That's, you know, strangers become, maybe if not lifelong friends, you at least enjoy that, you know, having met them, and you grew from their faith too. You know what I mean? It's there's always a surprise person on the pilgrimage. that you get touched by or that you're affected by in some way or other. The Lord uses people in different ways.
And it's usually the most unlikely person.
Oftentimes, yes.
Like usually the person that I want to avoid, you know how you always look at a group and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't. And then usually that person, the Lord just humbles me constantly. That's the person who has the greatest spiritual impact on my life. It's very strange how that happens. But anyway, Gina, can you talk to us a little about your experience, which is kind of like a pilgrimage?
Sure. I, for over 10 years, had felt that I wanted to go on a mission trip, but just never made it a priority or never searched for it the way that I should have. And so the last few months, many things have been pointing to that. One thing was I was reading a book regarding cultivating the gifts of the Spirit, or the fruits of the Spirit, and love was one of those. And it was, instead of going on a vacation in Hawaii surfing, go on a mission trip and serve others and serve Jesus in the process. So anyway, several things pointed to that. So I ended up going on a mission trip actually last Saturday. Unfortunately, it was cut short. I was only there for 3 days due to Hurricane Irma. But again, to your point, you meet so many people on the trip. It's not just the people you're helping, it's the people that you're with. And everyone does play a role in your spirituality. And it's definitely very rewarding. And just the need, this was actually a Christian medical mission trip. And so just the need of the people there, and it's something that I will definitely go back and do again.
So now you're a nurse practitioner?
Yes.
And so tell me what kind of medical stuff happened there.
There, we set up in the days that I was there before having to evacuate. We just treated patients for a couple of days. We set up in local churches and saw numerous patients come in. So we would see patients with really high blood pressure, with different types of rashes, a variety of illnesses, worms, parasites. Wow. And we had medications to treat them. The frustrating part of it, being a provider, is that you would only have medication to give them that was for a month. So that's kind of the challenging part, because you want to be able to help them and know, for example, if they have really high blood pressure, that there's a way to continue their blood pressure medication after their 30-day supply runs out. So we would try to refer them to local doctors and get them in to someone if they had a condition that was life-threatening or severe.
So is it like a clinic kind of? You set up like a clinic, a MASH unit?
Yes. So we would set up stations. There was one station where actually one of the physicians, her daughter, who I believe is 7, she actually learned in Spanish how to teach the children to brush their teeth. She did a puppet show.
Really?
So she taught them, and then we had a deworming and vitamin station. We had the registration station where they would triage them in a sense.
Explain triage to our listeners.
So triage would just be seeing why they're there, sorting them by severity, just getting basic information from them. Are you pregnant? Do you have allergies? Things that would be key. It's very different from how we triage
here
in the U.S. Yes, because it's just more so we need to make sure that someone's not pregnant, because they cannot have the pill that treats worms if they're pregnant. Just make sure they're not allergic to anything. So just vital things that would affect their care that we were giving them that day.
Tell us about the people themselves.
The people were very humble, very sweet. Most of them what amazed me, they were so friendly and loving, and what amazed me is that even though they lived in severe poverty, they were all very clean. So they would, make sure that they came to us bathed and clean.
Really?
Yes, wow. Yes. And we went in one of the towns, we would there wouldn't be a restroom, so we would have to use their homes. And I mean, the home that we went in was so clean and immaculate, and the lady was so sweet. And one of my team members ended up giving her some money, but she didn't want to take it at first. But she finally did take the money.
Are they very simple homes, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, very simple. I've been praying a lot for them in regards to the hurricane, because they do not have, I mean, they lived in shacks basically without, solid walls, and you could see, I mean, the wind would blow through the homes, so I'm praying.
And they're in the path of that? where
Yes,
were?
they were. The Dominican Republic, the hurricane went through there yesterday morning, and the previous night.
Yeah, we have to really remember in our hearts everyone who's in the wake of these hurricanes. This is quite an event that's happening.
Yeah,
And I know we went to Haiti, my daughter and I went to Haiti as part of a medical team after the earthquake, and I had the same experience, Gina. I was so touched, really, by the humility of the people.
Mm-hmm.
They were so grateful for the slightest little thing, and they were so like they would consider the fact that they had a tent, that we erected a tent over them, and now they had a tent to live in, would be like us moving into a mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Like their concept of what is so valuable to them would mean nothing to us.
Right.
That really touched me deeply. And how the kids, I don't know if you noticed that, but the children still are singing and playing and, making little kites out of scraps. It's amazing. It's just how life is going on in these camps, when we walk in there. And it was kind of like, it was a crazy experience, because, we were all complaining because we were, laying in a tent too, and we were like, my God, how can we be so upset about our conditions, and these people, this is kind of how they're living, period,
Yes.
And some of them still. What had happened was, in order to rescue a lot of the people, and I don't think people understand I don't think we understand, really, the full consequences of hurricanes and tornadoes and earthquakes. I think, we have a general Hollywood idea of it, but I know I'm still learning about it, like how fires will, ensue after it. And a lot of the people were amputated in order to rescue them from something that had fallen on them. But when we got there, the amputees were, all their surgery, if you want to call it that, was infected.
Mm-hmm.
So then they would need further amputation, and we just set up like a mesh unit, and that's how it worked. But it was so sad, because as Gina's pointing out, the follow-up, there was no follow-up. They were rescued from a building falling on them, but then nobody was there to take care of the wound.
Right.
So there's so many ramifications, I don't know if we really grasp all the ramifications. I think yesterday I was amazed, because some people were saying, well, we're staying here, we have our fuel and we have our water. And somebody pointed out, yeah, but what about the day after the hurricane?
Right.
What's going to happen? Who's going to have to, go in that water and find you? And what are you going to do about that? Like, I don't know if we really, in the Western world, I don't know, Father Peter, if you agree with that, because you're the historian here, but I don't know if we really grasp disasters, natural disasters, and the impact,
Well, certainly in the third world, a lot of people typically die in disasters, and even in the Houston, the tremendous devastation over a huge part of Texas, only about 100 people actually lost their lives. Now that's a tragedy, but that doesn't compare with the thousands that would die in third world countries with the infrastructures and the ability to find people and evacuate. Also, the fact there's so many more people densely living in dense, populated areas. So it's true. We probably really don't get a sense of that very much. But it looks like the Lord's catching up with us, because we have first Harvey and now Irma, and the Lord's not allowing us to forget that. we don't really have a lasting city here. We're on our way to what God calls, what Jesus calls the kingdom of heaven, hopefully. So we really have, to take these as signs that, the Lord can speak to us through and get us back on track with Him, even as we're trying to help others.
And I think it's important to point out that it's not God punishing us. It's not a punishing kind of experience like people say, oh, God is punishing the world. But I think what we have to understand is that grace builds on nature, and we have a natural world we live in, and we have free will. And God has given us free will. Sometimes I can't imagine why, but He did, and He's elected to be powerless against our free will. Out of His love for us, He is powerless. He has chosen to be powerless. So our free will brings on things sometimes that, we don't understand the consequences of some of the things that happen in the world. I guess that's why we're trying to be more conscious of the environment and of the different kinds of things that are going on around us, so we're more aware as we evolve as people. We're more aware of the world.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like you said, it's just also, there's like that age-old question that some bad things happen, like why do bad things happen?
Yeah.
Or sometimes people say, why do bad things happen to good people?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, just in general, like why do bad things happen? And like you mentioned, it's just a fact of living in the world and living in, and in the world, and that God is there with us through it.
And not only that, but the Word of God reassures us that the Lord is still in charge, and He's bigger than any tornado or hurricane. And He's not just going to bring good out of this. He's going to bring, actually, and this is the trust part, God will bring greater good than He could have brought if it didn't happen in the first place. He's got right, Peter. He's using everything.
That's a good reminder.
Sure. Well, classically speaking, in the mystical literature, we deal with this as the soul is making some progress in the things of God. Why does God seem to neglect those people? And it's in this book, biography of Saint Teresa of Avila. She had a mysterious illness that really grounded her, and they thought she was going to die, in her just shortly after she was professed. And so what we really want to do is understand how it was dealt with in the classical literature. Then we can apply it to today. So you see, and what of God in all this? Asks the skeptic. Is how that when the soul has turned to Him, He allows it to be treated so shamefully. So you see, it's the context is different, and so what John of the Cross is going to say doesn't apply directly, but God is freeing the soul from attachments to things in this world. That's the classical way it's presented. So the sufferings that good people or people striving to be close to God go through, they don't realize yet how attached they are to the things of this world. And if they're going to be able to cling to God, they've got to be able to let go of these other things, which many people have struggled all their lives to do. I mean, people want God, but they want a lot of other things too. So in the literature, you're going to find, similar problems. Now, of course, treated shamefully when you think of the suffering of children and poor people and so forth, out of proportion, it's hard to balance. But yet God is working in all of this to bring good out of the evil, to get good people to help others, to focus people on eternal values, to help people let go of certain material things that they didn't need anyway, but thought they did. And, it's not easy for us to put it all together, but that's the direction it goes in.
And again, I don't believe it has anything to do with the punishment of God on us. I think that's important to underscore here and, anchor people in that truth. This is not God punishing us, but He did give us free will. I always think of it like we give Him a lot of lemons, but He makes a lot of lemonade, right?
Thank you, Barbara. I would just like to add, too, because I actually live in Tampa, so we're in the path of the hurricane now, and thankfully I'm here after evacuating from the Dominican, but it is, as humans, it's so easy to get caught up in the fear, and you have to constantly be redirected to God and Scripture and what's been promised to us, and the point of detachment. I think that's so important and true in America, in the Western world, because that's what, on social media right now, everyone's worried about their homes and their things, and it's like really the most important thing is your family and your soul and your salvation. And that is something I think that God uses these disasters such as this to bring people closer to Him, or have people minister to others in this type of situation.
In ways they wouldn't have known.
Right.
Could not have had the stage set for it, in other words,
Right.
beforehand. Yeah, I think that's amazing when you see the people. That's such a touching thing, right? That
Yes.
Everybody just jumping in like that. It's just, and risking their own lives, I think.
I was going to ask you, I know you said you live in Tampa, so I'm sure you've had other experiences with natural natural disasters, living by that area. How is that, those experiences, how have you grown in your faith, or how has that impacted you?
I've been in Tampa since 2003, so thankfully I was only in town for one hurricane, which was in 2004 that hit Tampa, and it was a Category 1, and it was scary.
Really?
And my faith was not as strong then. I've always believed in God, always gone to church, was raised in the church, but my faith is definitely stronger now, and I think it's just a matter of realizing that God is in control of everything, and as much as we humans think we're in control or want to control, the reality is we're not, and we have to turn it over to God, and that's the only way you're going to find true peace and joy, is turning it over to God.
I like what you just said about God in control, because I find that one of the greatest insights I can give clients, I never really gave them until I suddenly realized how much people needed to hear it, because I thought everybody knew it. So I never gave it to them, but it's exactly what Gina's saying. I'll say to them, suddenly, wait a minute, there's something bigger than your problems, right?
Yes.
He's bigger than your problems.
Yes.
And people are like, oh, it's like wow, I never thought of it like that. And I never realized how essential some of those very elementary things are to say to people, that there's something so much bigger than this, and God is in charge. I remember my husband just suffered a long illness of 5 years, and he went home to the Lord in November, but what got me through it was every time when I was, in one of my states, he would say to me, he would grab my hand and say, Barb, God's in charge here, not you. And it was such a great, I felt like I was being washed over with peace and comfort when he would say that to me. It was just a reminder, relax.
It is. And we as humans need those reminders constantly, because we have such a busy world, and it's so easy to get caught up in that, and those reminders are so important.
Yeah, I think that's why witnessing to one another. And did you feel, Gina, you felt that the people that you met there increased your faith or lifted you up, even though you were there such a short time?
Definitely.
It allowed you to feel, how did you feel with them?
Just very humbled, and again, understanding more the importance of being more selfless and living for others, and to do God's will versus being selfish.
I thought of before when Father Peter was speaking about letting go of attachments to the world. I thought of in Scripture and just in general how dying to self so that Christ can be with us, and like nature imagery, when it says in Scripture, Jesus said a grain of wheat must fall to the ground and die before it could bear much fruit. And I thought of that as we're talking about pilgrimage and how difficult it could be, how you went on the mission trip and you were out of your comfort zone, helping and being with people you didn't know, and so that's really an example as well, that the Lord wants us to break that. It's like and grow closer to Him through that encounter with other people, and so that's what I mentioned, what I just thought of. And I just wanted to ask Natalie another question. We'll come back to Natalie. I know you wanted to mention about high school. You're in high school now, and being Catholic in high school, and some of the challenges, and how you're living out your faith there.
It's definitely difficult being a Catholic and in this time period, in this society. In school, I'm surrounded by so many people of different faiths, so many people with no faith that don't believe in any God, and it's difficult wearing a cross on my neck, and people making comments and trying to belittle me because of my faith.
And it's a tiny little cross.
Yeah. I also wear one on my wrist too. And it's difficult, and I'm just surrounded by so many people that just think so negatively of God, and sometimes I'm not gonna lie, it's very discouraging, and it's saddening, and they don't know that God is so wonderful and so loving, and it's just it's definitely a challenge, trying to be a Catholic in high school. And not only that, but it's so difficult as trying to make the most of your years at high school with all the schoolwork, colleges, planning to go here or there, planning to stay, trying to maintain a certain GPA, and it's hard and it's a lot of work. And sometimes I lose sight of God under all the stress and anxiety. Like I lose my path sometimes. But as most people say, God is in every situation, as you guys were saying. Like you can find God in all the struggles and difficulties, and everybody carries their cross. And I think especially for young people, young Catholics, it's difficult in high school, but by going to church every Sunday, by really investing yourself in Mass and going to adoration and praying the rosary, doing volunteer work, even here, speaking out your testimonies, it's very important, and it contributes to my faith. And there's so many young people that have such strong faith, and I witnessed that because of World Youth Day. I saw so many young people. I've never seen so many people who love God and have such a strong feeling towards their faith than I ever did at World Youth Day. And it's difficult to come back from that, and going into a high school setting where you have all these people, different faiths, no faiths. But to young people especially, I just want to say that it's not impossible to be a devout Catholic in high school. And, God is always there helping me. Like, I don't even know how, I pray so much during the day for patience, for strength, for intelligence on a test. So,
How did this all happen? I mean, were you just born like this, or?
You're 16, right?
Yeah.
So
how did it happen that you have such an understanding of God's love for you?
It's amazing.
To be honest, I was raised in the church, going to church every day. But when I was in 6th grade, I joined a youth group, a youth ministry, and that ministry has changed my life. And
Really?
The priest that's in charge, Father Johnny, he played a really big role in that. And most people get, you know, the different ideas about youth groups and youth ministries, you know, like, oh yeah, it's just like it's kind of like not emphasized enough, you know. They're so powerful, and you know, I've met so many new people, and I wouldn't be the person I am today without that youth ministry.
So you think it was actually the youth ministry?
Yeah, it was exactly that.
Well, you'll have to tell us which one now.
Uh,
Which parish?
St. Catherine of Siena in Franklin Square.
And how many young people are in that group?
I would say like roughly 30, 35, around
Really?
that, yeah.
Wow, that's right, Father. That's
That's good numbers for
amazing.
today. Yes, it is.
And another little question: are they mostly girls, or are there some guys?
Actually, it's a good mix of both.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm very impressed by that.
Yeah.
That's very
It's
impressive.
a very, very amazing group, and I feel so special that, you know, I was chosen by God to, you know, participate in this group. You know, it's His will, and I'm so forever thankful that, you know, I can be a part of this, and you know, I'll have this with me for the rest of my life.
Did you ever get a little upset with God that, you know, here we have in the life of Saint Teresa, you know, that was one of the issues that they're dealing with, and you know, Saint John of the Cross is asking, why does God treat His friends so shamefully? And you know.